New York City Comic Con has come and gone. This is the first big convention that we've had since Jonathan Hickman's House of X, Powers of X. Some news coming out about Dawn of X and the new X-Men titles. Let's wrap it up for you. Hey there, this is Perch. Just kind of going over the news that came out of the New York City Comic Con 2019. This is the first big convention that's really hit since the House of X, Powers of X, X-Men kind of relaunch, reboot, whatever you'd like to call it. Definitely not a reboot, but definitely a new starting point for the X-Men. This has been the first time this is really done since Chris Claremont took the reins with giant-sized X-Men and kind of turned what the X-Men was at the time on its head. There's been other big storylines. What will be the true test of time is if everything we're seeing now holds up. If 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're still dealing with this legacy, then yes, it probably will be one of the biggest X-Men status quo shifts of all time. Unfortunately, the X-Men has also been marked with plenty of examples of big status quo shifts that are quickly kind of undone and loosened up as time goes by. You saw this to some extent with Grant Morrison and what he did, more so with Joss Whedon and that run, and even some with Brubaker and Fraction that came years later. It's been a kind of sweep under the rug style with X-Men. But what do we know? So first off, this Wednesday, we're getting the final issue, Powers of X #6. And some pages were shown at the event, and not really telling us very much, except we do know a couple things. One, we're going to see more of the Falnax. It's not a big surprise. It looks like we're going to see at least some additional hints to the Horsemen that were with Apocalypse during kind of the forging of Krakoa and that initial battle. But it does look like we're going to at least wrap up some of that time period, the time period in the far, far future, where someone, Professor X or someone like him, Moira in another body, will be dealing with kind of the threat of techno invasion and what that all means for evolution. Evolution being the key word there. We're also going to get a little bit of Moira. Now, something interesting here that's been going on for this entire run, we didn't get any clues on the New York City Comic Con, but we are getting some indications just based on what we know with the new titles. The timeline of #6, Moira Life #6, has remained hidden. And it's still a very safe bet that we've seen at least some aspects of it. The fact that it's completely hidden is a bit of a clue in and of itself. And so it does beg to differ, or beg for us to wonder if the current timeline, and we can believe the people at Marvel, C.B. Cebulski and Jordan White, saying very emphatically this is current timeline. Of course, there's lots of ways you can weasel out of that statement, but basically the X-Men we're seeing is the current X-Men. And there's still something hugely problematic with that, but we'll get that to that in a minute. If that's true, then some of the things that's informing Moira and kind of her approach right now in terms of getting ready for evolution had to have occurred at some point. There's some unusual clues that we've gotten sprinkled in that don't fit yet. But let's go through. Powers of X will have a big twist. It was joked about a bit during the panel. Joked about that, oh, there won't be a twist at all. The biggest twist is undoubtedly coming this Wednesday. And when I say twist, at least some big shocking thing that either brings it together, kind of sets the status quo. You've heard some of my predictions on other channels. I do think that there's at least a mystery here about, who is truly Professor X right now, who's pulling the strings. There's another shoe that needs to drop. But we will see. We will see what that is like. So going through the titles and what's been revealed and where. Obviously, the big news starting kind of back to front is that we are getting a new Wolverine book, Wolverine #1. And it's done by the same writer as X-Force, Ben Percy. This is an interesting connection with that title. Wolverine will be a major part of X-Force and likely the leading part of X-Force. The two heads of X-Force will be Wolverine and Beast. We'll get to a little bit more in a minute, but Wolverine, the title by Ben Percy, art rotating team of Adam Kubert, Victor Bogdanovich. I'm going to say that terribly. This title, rotating art kind of pricked up people's ears a little bit of what's going on there. These books in general are going to have rotating art teams. We're already seeing a different artist for X-Men. We'll get to that in a minute as well, too. But these books are going to come out more frequently than monthly. They're all being called monthly books, or really they're not being called anything, but where it counts on order forms are called monthly, but then you have 2 issues shipping. So it's going to be a more frequent shipping schedule for a lot of these titles for a while. They will slow down. You saw this with you've seen this a little bit with Spider-Man to some extent, and all the related books. You've seen it with Avengers for a period of time. We're going to see more frequent books and a kind of an odd shipping schedule. But Wolverine coming out looks to maintain the recent status quo shifts. Hickman once again staying true to his word of using everything, even in the sillier things that have come in recent years, being the hot claws, and I'll explain that in a video in some near point. But Wolverine, a brand new title, #1, and they're calling this the first of the Phase 2 books. I continue to hear that there will be 3 Phase 2 books. One of them has to be Uncanny X-Men, you've got to think, but there may be a Phase 3 in there. I don't know. It depends on how quick of a timeline we're going. Keep in mind, Phase 1 of Dawn of X was October, so 3 months later, we're getting Phase 2. So it's not necessarily a lock that we're going to get some of these other kind of foundational books right out the gate if Phase 2 is going to be all in kind of the first quarter, January, February, March timeframe. So we may see some additional books come out. Leah Williams is a creator who's currently doing the Mary Jane book and the Gwenpool book, and she's announced as having some role to play with Phase 2, but we don't know what that role is as of yet. I have heard that there will be a kind of female-led book, either a solo or a team, coming up soon as part of these issues. My money would be on somebody like Storm getting their own book. I think that's something that Marvel's wanted to do and something that I think they've regretted not doing before. And with some of the kind of higher profile pieces to Storm of late, I think it would make a lot of sense. They just had a Jean Grey book. Could be Jean Grey as well. That also would probably make some sense. But Storm seems like a likelier candidate for a number of reasons that X-Men would want to get in there and do that. So in terms of the main books, we do have X-Men, and X-Men is going to be a one-and-done kind of series for a while. It's the common thread is Cyclops. He is the battle general of the X-Men, and he will be formulating kind of unique teams, very, very similar to kind of Captain America and Iron Man's approach to Avengers early on, where you saw these unique Avengers teams being formulated to take on specific threats. This is very, very familiar to Hickman style of writing. So Cyclops will be handpicking teams for missions. Each issue will be one and done, and there will be a number of different adventures. We're going to go to the Savage Land relatively soon. We're going to be going to some political global espionage and politics in issue 5, the X-Men going to a World Economic Summit, and issue, I believe, 3 and 4, although it's hard to tell from the solicits. We're going to be going to the Savage Land, and we're going to get some Emma Frost in there, and so a lot of rotating team members. Mystique factors heavily into one of the upcoming issues as well. The Yu is listed at least as the artist for the first 4 issues, and then issue 5 and 6 are featuring RB Silva. So we are getting different artists pretty quickly out the gate. Lentil Francis Yu really only confirmed of doing interiors for the first 4 issues. We'll see what happens after that. But that is the kind of core series that's going to be pushing the main X-Men narrative forward, but each issue kind of one and done with a common thread kind of going through those. And so I'd expect Cyclops to be the point of view character going on there. Marauders. Marauders as a book, Gary Duggan. The interior artwork looking pretty nice. I think it's one of those cases where the exterior artist, Russell Dauberman, the recent artist from War of the Realms, Thor, doing the covers for that, but a very different interior art style. But anyway, this book is claimed, at least on the panel, to be kind of the most core to the X-Men mythology and kind of world building that they did. Lots of Emma Frost and Kitty Pryde as the 2 main characters working with the Hellfire Trading Company, spreading these kind of mutant drugs around and also getting people out. We've seen some interesting work from Matteo Lolli bleh, there, and lots of from what we're hearing, and some other interviews were going on, big Iceman moments, trying to really bring Iceman back up as a major powerhouse, major kind of Omega level mutant, and not kind of a joke. His character has kind of been all over the place lately. I'm not talking about the gay aspect to his character. I'm talking about just how his power set's handled. They were building him up as kind of an Omega level mutant, and then back to kind of a joke, and then he talked about being an Omega level mutant, but then he do silly things. In this one, it looks like he's doing major offensive maneuvers with the book, and he's going to be a powerhouse for the book. So that sounds like a good use of Bobby. The book is said to be absolutely bonkers in terms of the story and what it's doing, and kind of the nature of it, and kind of the edge that the characters will have. Looks like we're going to be getting a Kitty Emma relationship that's similar to Whedon's astonishing relationship of more of a hate and a love-hate kind of relationship. Excalibur as a title. This one, Teenie Howard made a number of statements in different places over the weekend around what the book is. We're learning a little bit more about what the thrust of it will be. It's going to be a little bit more about magic. It's going to be a little bit more about kind of the other world. We knew that already, but the big dynamic of the book looks like it's going to be Betsy Braddock as Captain Britain and Apocalypse, and how the two of those are kind of two sides of not the same coin, but two very unique, big heavy hitter characters that are going to be doing big heavy hitter things. And really the goal here is going to be to elevate Apocalypse significantly from where he's been in the past. He was this kind of big mysterious mutant back in the old days with both Claremont and Simonson, in how he's written when he was first put out. And now we're going to get kind of more mythology building, really take up the idea of, who is this person? Who is this mutant who's been around since the very beginning, doing major things? Marcus Toe doing the art, and really impressive art. The interiors have been shown, look really nice. It's turning out, this was the title I was most concerned about in terms of the strength of the book, and the team roster still seems very unusual, with Jubilee there next to Apocalypse and Richter and Rogue and Gambit. It's an odd team, but the idea of being kind of very magic based, very discordant. These elements are brought together in almost a desperate kind of incursion into other realms. It's going to give Apocalypse something new to conquer in a way. So there's some things in here that look a little bit more unique and interesting. But there's some news coming out of there. Marcus Toe, they're saying, is really channeling his inner Alan Davis. And if you look at some of the covers later on, it definitely has that feel to it of kind of an Alan Davis-like feel. So that's good. XForce. We have got as they say, a dirty book, a gritty book. This is a book of kind of very violent, very dark kind of X-Force missions, and then very super science-y stuff. I heard from somebody at the show that the way it was being described on the floor was, you're going to be getting Rick Remender's X-Force for the Wolverine side of it, the Wetworks side of it, and you're going to be getting something akin to Mark Millar's Prodigy of the super science, clever, kind of high adventure, science-y side of the world. And so that's going to be an interesting title. Definitely, they say they're going to be challenging a lot of the feel of that well-celebrated Remender run of kind of getting in and doing some things. It is going to be bringing Forge into the team and being kind of a mutant weapons supplier, if you will, as part of the book, having interesting kind of bio-warfare and super sneaky missions that they're going to go on. This is the book that it promises to be the most dangerous of the titles, and has a potential to be something hopefully not gimmicky. I think that's the problem. People who've tried to do Remender's style run, like mentioned at the end or at the beginning, Benjamin Percy also writing Wolverine, so a nice tie in there with how the characters are going to be interacting with each other and working and doing some things. Hearing that we're going to get some nice kind of classic X-Men villains as part of this, people who didn't necessarily come over as part of the group, or people who are not mutants but been villains to the X-Men. I would expect some of the Sentinel programs to exist here, and maybe even pick up on some threads of that we saw in Powers of X, House of X, in terms of that prison facility that they were going to try Sabretooth in. Feels like that's going to be handled here in this title and at least brought up. The New Mutants, we got a lot of data on. Ed Brisson, Marco Falea. New Mutants in this regard, it will be a pretty large team, it sounds like. It's going to be encompassing all of the different kind of aspects of the original New Mutants, Generation X, some of the young X-Men, some of that whole run, even some of the characters that Grant Morrison introduced during his run. The book is said to be kind of co-written by Hickman, and what we've learned by that is that Hickman is going to be really handling the first arc, which are the New Mutants. The original New Mutants come together and realize that they miss Cannonball. They want Cannonball to be back with the team, so they have a true reunion, and so they go off to space and hook up with the Starjammers and try and bring Cannonball back home. And so that makes sense. It's kind of a dangling plot thread from what Hickman did with Sunspot and Cannonball when he wrote the Avengers. And so it makes sense that he's kind of wanting to go and provide almost an epilogue to that story. And that's great that we're going to get to see that. Ed Brisson, meanwhile, says that the thrust of the book going forward will be how these New Mutants kind of welcome other New Mutants or other travelers into Krakoa and into the Mutant Society, and kind of all the various hijinks and things that will entail. Fallen Angels, if you haven't had a chance, check out the interview with Brian Edward Hill that I did about a week ago. There's another version up that just has the Fallen Angels piece, so you can see that as well and make it easy for you. But Fallen Angels starring Quanon, the Revanche and that whole mythology of the Psylocke story, as well as X-23 Laura and young Cable, and then revealing at the show that Husk and Bling will also join the Fallen Angels team. Bling had this personality that they always seemed like they wanted to kind of get out on the table and never. She always got squeezed out by other plot lines. So it'd be interesting to see what Brian Hill does with her here. And Husk makes absolute sense. Husk is a character that's been very uncomfortable kind of in her own body and in finding a place in the world, dating back to even Jason Aaron's work on Wolverine and the X-Men. So nice to see that coming to the table. Still, that title is supposed to be all about, how do mutants, how do people who are not peaceful people survive when it's peacetime? How do they find their way in the world, and how do maybe their aspects to their personality fit in this new kind of utopia, and what does that mean for everything, and how are they perhaps the people who are going to be most on guard for where problems may come up? So some interesting news, as I said, coming out of New York City Comic-Con. A lot of nice things that are going to go on. Definitely, we got some additional confirmation that we will see Franklin and Valeria, on Krakoa, or at least dealing with kind of that offer that was made during the very first House of X issue. We're also going to be seeing a little bit more of people like Gambit and Rogue and how their relationship survives in this new world. Going to be seeing certainly more of all the mutants. One of the benefits to X-Men and how it's being billed is this is the title where we're going to be able to see kind of the extended universe of the X-Men and that where that all goes. So, hey, that is basically news coming out of the New York City Comic-Con. We got a pretty big moment coming up here this Wednesday. So I hope you'll join me for a review of Powers of X #6, which will cap off this whole Seeds storyline that got us all going, and then we'll see where it all lands with Dawn of X. But what do you think? Are you enjoying the run so far? Anything you like, dislike, want to learn more about? Leave a comment below. We'll see if we can get some answers for you. And otherwise, like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, tell a friend, share a friend, follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch, and thank you for listening.